If you are looking for a deck to play in the upcoming Historic Pauper Midweek Event, or just a fun budget deck to play on the ladder, I've got you covered. I spent hours researching and designing 3 decks using powerful new commons from Bloomburrow and Modern Horizons 3 to create these Pauper decks for Arena. And because it's Tuesday, Tribal Tuesday, or Typal Tuesday as we call it on the channel, all these decks feature Typal synergies. Let's go. Welcome to the Attic. Manadad here. It's the channel where we explore what's fun in Magic. What's fun in Magic? I love Pauper. Pauper is so much fun. It's fun to brew, it's fun to play, and it's even fun on Arena. Okay, there's a I'm going to leave a link in the description. There is a Discord and a subreddit that discusses it. It's not the most active, but I would love to see it more active because it's a really fun format, and I hope you follow those links and agree. What are we doing today? Well, I got 3 different decks. We got Eldrazi, we've got a Slimes Against Humanities deck, we've got Birds coming up, and then I'll probably leave links to some bonus stuff. I've also done other deck techs for Historic Pauper decks on the channel, so there's a Pauper playlist you can go through. You can find some other lists of things. Won't be using the latest, newest cards like these 3 decks are, but I invite you to check those out. Okay, so let's get into it. Eldrazi, Pauper Eldrazi, just built around my favorite common of the year, or at least, you know, the common you don't want to see your opponent playing, Writhing Chrysalis. A 2/3, whenever you cast it, you make 2/0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens, which are able to be sacrificed for colorless mana. It's got reach, so forget about, you know, all these decks with little flyers. And whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, you put a +1/+1 counter on Writhing Chrysalis. So it could be, you know, a 4/5 if you sack off the 2 tokens. You can chump with the token, then sack it, and grow your Writhing Chrysalis. It just ends up being a really annoying thing. Even if they remove it, you still got the tokens left over. So this is your Timmy deck. If you want to just ramp and play giant creatures, even at common, this is the deck for you. So what have we got here? First of all, we've got 8 elves available here in Pauper. We got the Land of War elves, we got the Elvish Mystics. We're going to try to play one of those on turn 1. Leapfrog us into Glimpse the Impossible or Heaped Harvest on turn 2. But if we don't, we still have Malevolent Rumble on turn 2. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You can put a permanent from among them into your hand, rest into your graveyard, and you make a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn creature token. So we're ramping, and if that's, you know, that will either ramp us to the Heaped Harvest or the Glimpse of the Impossible the next turn, or the Writhing Chrysalis, which will be nice. Then, Glimpse the Impossible. Let's talk about this. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. At the beginning of the next end step, if any of those cards remain exiled, put them in your graveyard. Create Eldrazi spawn token, right? And all these tokens synergize very nicely with our Writhing Chrysalis. And you should feel comfortable even just playing this when you're tapped out and just getting the 3 spawns. That's perfectly fine with this deck because we have some big top end threats, which we're about to get to. Heaped Harvest, Bloomburrow card, but is been pretty popular in competitive decks, you know, not just in Pauper. And when it enters and when you sacrifice it, you get to ramp. Search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped. And of course, it's a food, so when you sacrifice it, you're going to gain the 3 life. So it's a little bit of life protection because this deck could be a little bit slow in starting. But of course, once we get our big threats down, we're in good shape. We're going to protect our big threats with the Gaia's Gift. So let's talk about what the big threats are. Good thing about the Gaia's Gift also is that it gives trample. I should note that while we're talking about Gaia's Gift. Okay. 1 Junkblade Bruiser. I just thought it'd be fun to throw in another Bloomburrow common here. If you played some Bloomburrow Limited, you're used to. It's not that hard to expend 4 because it could just be 2 spells that cost 2, or, you know, even a Land of War and something that costs 3. That means you just spent 4 mana on spells, and once you do that, it's a 6/6 trample. And of course, trample is kind of going to be a key for us to win. Chrysalis unfortunately does not have trample. We don't have a lot of ways to clear blockers. So if opponents got a bunch of Eldrazi spawns of their own, it's going to be hard to win quickly, at least with Chrysalis. We can kind of, you know, knock them down. And we've got Warp Tusker, which is a 6/8 reach. For 7, we can also cycle it for 3 just to make a token, so don't be afraid to do that. Perfectly valid, just to spend 3 mana, ramp us, get us to another threat that we might have in hand. Molten Monstrosity is kind of fun. I just have a one of fun of here, but it's 5/5 trample and costs X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So once we have, Writhing Chrysalis at a 4/5 or even a 5/6, this is going to be really cheap to cast. And then from Modern Horizons, we got the Nyxborn Hydra. So these creatures that don't have trample, we can bestow onto them, give it trample. Then if they get removed, we end up with a big Hydra. Also, if we've just ramped incredibly, there aren't a lot of X spells in Pauper, at least Arena Pauper. So this is a key one. If you have a lot of mana and you need something to spend it on, you're going to want to draw this or keep this in hand till late for that exact occasion. Just play a massive reach trampling creature. You notice we have a ton of reach because there are a lot of flyers in the Arena Pauper format, or at least I'm expecting there to be. We'll see how the meta shakes out. This will be probably one of the biggest tests when they run this midweek event. In the mana base, Escape Tunnel, kind of a fun little synergy. This could be 2/3, but we have a bunch of these Eldrazi spawn tokens hanging around. We can sacrifice the Escape Tunnel, make this unblockable, get in, and then sacrifice a bunch of the spawns, hit them for a huge amount. It also is just sort of an evolving wilds. Bountiful Landscape. I'm not going to use the cycling ability on it, but it is a colorless source. I don't think any of our Eldrazi actually care about colorless sources, but if you wanted to build around more of the Eldrazi, there's some good blue Eldrazi in MH3 you could build around. Definitely want to keep this land in mind. Racer's Ring, for when we flood out, we're going to sacrifice it. We can cash it in for a card. 5 mountains, 11 forests. You definitely want to be able to make untapped green on turn 1 if you can. So this mana base might need some tweaking once it's been played a bit more, but that's kind of what my thinking is currently. All right, on to the next deck, but first, a message from Overlord of the Hauntwoods.
Hey, it's me, Overlord of the Hauntwoods. Actually, haunting and overlording are just my hobbies. My day job is managing the YouTube algorithm. I try to make sure lots of negative, conspiracy-laden clickbait shows up in your feed. You know, nightmare fuel. Whatever you do, don't like, comment, or elder gods forbid, subscribe to a channel like this one, okay? We don't need your feed filled up with people who genuinely enjoy playing Magic like this so-called Manadad. He puts deck lists and other useful links in the description. He even shows real win rate stats at the end of the videos. Yikes. Clicking on positive, helpful videos takes away from the time I could be spending haunting woods or putting my friend Writhing Chrysalis into draft boosters. But you don't have to take it from me. 9 out of 10 players who want to unban grief agree. Now let's see. What is your racist uncle clicking on today? He has impeccable taste. Let me send some of those videos your way.
Okay, you know it, you love it. Star of one of the most popular videos on my channel of all time, Slime Against Humanity, a sorcery. Makes a 0/0 green ooze creature token with trample, but you're going to put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is 2 plus the total number of cards you own in exile and in your graveyard that are oozes and named Slime Against Humanity, and you can play any number of them, which is why we're running 16 Slimes Against Humanity. All right, we're all in on Slime Against Humanity, as you're going to see. Let's talk about how do we make our slimes as big as possible, as fast as possible. First of all, Faithless Looting is now Arena Pauper legal. It's been regular Pauper legal because it was originally printed at Common, but it was only available as a rare on Arena until they reprinted it here as Common. So be sure if you craft it, don't use your rare wild cards. Do the Common version for your Pauper decks. Draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, flashback 2 in a red, do it again. We don't care about filling our graveyard or even exiling the Slimes Against Humanity, which is why stuff like Reckless Impulse, exile the top 2 cards of your library until end of your next turn. You may play those cards, and Ren's Resolve, just functional reprint. Might be possible you want more of these. Some of the deck lists I was looking at ran even more of these. But I did want to work in something similar from Bloomburrow to try it out. Sazicap's Brew. This is your standard 2 mana, discard a card to draw 2 cards, but you can give your opponent a tapped fish So maybe try to save it as a finisher in a lot of cases. And if you do that, target creature you control gets +2/+0. That little extra damage could be key. I'm only running one of these right now. We'll test it out. We'll see how it goes when we play out the deck. But just thought that would be fun and a way to work in some Bloomburrow. Also, Bitter Reunion, similar effect. It's an enchantment, but it has this ability: sacrifice creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. So if you get a later turn, we've built up a bunch of mana. We get a later turn. We can sacrifice this, give one of our big slimes haste, and basically kill people out of nowhere. I mean, you can't say they're not expecting it if it's on the board, but sometimes people forget about this ability. And so that haste ability should be pretty good. We'll test it out. Maybe you want to dial these down, dial up the Reckless Impulses or the Sazacaps Brews. I'm not exactly sure without extensive testing how many of each you want to do, but that's something to think about. Also, Modern Horizons 3, Malevolent Rumble, we covered it in the previous deck, but reveal top 4 of your library. You can put a permanent from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. This is just going to stack the graveyard and ramp us because we want to get to as many slimes as we can. 2-wit, Goblin and Narcomancer, making our slimes cost 1 less, also making all our other spells cost 1 less. Each spell you cast that's red or green costs 1 less to cast. Also just a 2/2 for 2. Pretty nice. I like Goblin and Narcomancer. Deck list I was mainly basing off only had 3 of these guys, so maybe in multiples they're not as strong. You do want to dial it down to 3. Something to keep in mind. Then ram through, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. If the creature you control has trample, our creatures are going to have trample, our slimes are going to have trample. Excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. And keep in mind, this is instant speed also. So this is a very powerful bite spell. Just be wary of opponent having mana up, but because the removal in Pauper, especially Arena Pauper, is not as strong, I think it's much safer to run ram through than you might be used to, and it's going to be hopefully very powerful if we can make our slimes big enough. 3 of Cabaret Courtyard, 4 of Rugged Highlands. You might decide that the crime lands are better than the gain life lands, but just something to consider. And then 6 forests, 6 mountains. Maybe would want to skew a little bit more red, although we definitely need green for our slimes. But just so that you can hit Faithless Looting on turn 1 more easily. Again, not enough time to test out the mana bases and really refine it, but hopefully some of you are really good at that and will leave some comments down below and help us all out and, get these decks so that they're really, really tight and good. I have no doubt that they'll be able to, win your 2 free rares in the midweek event. But anyways, let's go to the next deck. Definitely do check out the descriptions. I'm going to have other deck lists besides this third next deck, which is really good. That's all I'm going to say. I think it may be the best one, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, let's go to deck number 3. Okay, if you've stuck with it this far, you're in for a treat. Maybe you haven't heard of this deck, but for what I could tell, this is a meta style deck. I mean, it's my own twist on it, but this is a meta deck in the Arena Pauper community, and it's blue-white birds. So what we're trying to do is just land a cheap bird like Healer's Hawk, Miner's Guidewing, Harrier Strix, then load it up, hopefully with Ethereal Armor, which we have 4 of, which we can also grab with Heliod's Pilgrim, and smash in. Now, we do want to be able to protect our special bird. We've got 4 of Dazzling Denial, which is our Bloomburrow featured card here. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2, which is always good. But once you control a bird, which we're going to easily control a bird in this deck, counter that spell unless its controller pays 4 instead. Pretty nice. Lofty Denial, as copies 5 and 6 of this, it's only 4 spikes, so they have to pay 1 if we don't have a creature with flying. But of course, all our birds have flying. So once we've got a flyer on the board, 4 mana, and that is almost like a hard counter spell. It's pretty strong. Okay, what else is in the deck? Well, we talked about Ethereal Armor. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and has first strike. We can also give first strike and +1/+1 with Cartouche of Solidarity. It's going to make a 1/1 white warrior creature that can chump block. It's got vigilance, so it wears enchantments decently well, but I think most of the time we're going to want to put our enchantment on a flyer. We also have one of Karametra's Blessing is another way to protect. Just holding up 1 mana is sometimes easier than holding up a blue and one other. So we got Karametra's Blessing. As long as our creature is enchanted, it's going to get hexproof and indestructible. And the +2/+2 can be a finisher, right? The opponent's like, oh, well, okay, I'll go down to 2, but then I'll crack back and win. No, we had Karametra's Blessing in hand. We buffed another 2 that they didn't expect out of nowhere. Boom, we win the game. Harrier Strix is interesting. It's just a regular flyer, but it does have an ETB ability. And I like this in Pauper, the draw a card, discard a card. I guess it's not loot, right? It's rummage. I can't ever remember which one where the discard comes first. I think the discard comes first on loot. You leave a comment and remind me. But Harrier Strix has that ability. We can kind of filter our hand, which is nice to get to these things. Also, great aura to pop on a flyer that's getting in security bypass. Also is kind of a loot effect, the connive. So it's going to get +1/+1 if we discard a non-land card. But more than we care about that, we probably just want to shape our hand, make sure we're hitting our land drops or getting some protection spells when we need them. Spirited Companion adds to our enchantment count for Ethereal Armor. Also going to draw us a card. Nurturing Presence. The nice thing about this is it's making a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So even if they remove the creature, this can be one you can slap on and you don't have to hold up the the protection, because if they remove it, we still have a 1/1 flyer. We can start building that up and protect it the next turn. For removal, 3 of Cooped Up. Of course, we would like an aura-based or enchantment-based removal because of the Ethereal Armor. So we've got Cooped Up. 1 of Minimus Containment, which is to deal with stuff that's even harder to deal with than Cooped Up can do. Cooped Up, of course, has this second ability, which you don't want to sleep on. It's going to remove it from the battlefield, but you exile enchanted creature. Going to remove the Cooped Up from the battlefield. So factor that in with your Ethereal Armor. But sometimes you're going to, want to pop this on something that has an effect, pay the full 5 mana, get rid of it, exile it entirely. And, there's not a lot of ways to do that in Pauper. Heliod's Pilgrim, if you don't know it. So 1/2, it enters. We can grab an aura card. Almost always going to be Ethereal Armor, but maybe if we need to grab, some removal, we can with it. Pretty nice. In the mana base, 2 of Skybridge Towers for cases where we flood out. Lonely Arroyo, I went with the crime lands in this deck. Because I think of us sort of as a tempo deck. We're just trying to chip down, deal that 20 damage before opponent can stabilize, wreck their game plan with the counter spells and the auras and just smash in with our birds. 6 islands, 8 planes. You might have to even that out a little bit, but definitely worth testing. Let me know how you do with these decks and leave some comments for everyone else. I think if you're going to the Historic Pauper Discord, it would be great to have a little more action there and more discussion. So hopefully this video will help kickstart that. That is it for today. Thank you for joining me here in the attic. I've been Manadad. If this has been helpful at all, hit that subscribe, hit that like, leave a comment, and punish the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, by making it like videos that are helpful. Okay, that is all I got to say, except for remember, Magic is a game so fun, even dads can enjoy it.